Today, I bring you a drama film starring the French goddess, Sophie Marceau, titled The Man Next to the Pillow. Leo was once an outstanding boxer. After retiring, he moved to South America to live alone. Bidding farewell to his glorious career, life became peaceful, but Leo felt somewhat lost. He spent his days hanging out in bars and boxing gyms or staring at the sea in a daze. His days were dull, and money was running low. One day, he heard from a friend about a woman who was paralyzed from the neck down due to a car accident and needed a caregiver. Pressed by financial needs, Leo went for the job interview through his friend's introduction. He was received by another caregiver, Lucia. Since the employer, Moyer, was paralyzed from the neck down and needed constant care, there were always two caregivers taking turns, one for the day shift and one for the night shift. Since Moyer became paralyzed, her temper has been quite strange. The caregiver's duties include helping Moyer with bowel movements and cleaning her body. Except for Lucia, other caregivers found it unbearable. They usually left after 2 or 3 days, never staying more than a week. Moyer had already hired over 40 people, but none could stick around. Because it was hard to find someone, Leo was introduced by a friend and Moyer agreed to meet him. After all, Moyer is a woman, and having a man as a caregiver can be inconvenient. During the meeting, Moyer asked Leo some harsh questions and saw that he was indeed in desperate need of money. Thinking he might last longer, she decided to give him a try. After the interview, Leo went to the kitchen and took a few sips of cooking wine. He really is an alcoholic and indeed very poor, unable to afford real wine, so he even drinks cooking wine to satisfy his cravings. After just a few sips, he heard Moyer calling him, and he hurried back to the bedroom. It turned out that Moyer wanted to read a book. Although Moyer was bedridden, she loved reading very much. She had a specially designed folding table with a bookshelf. When the table was placed on the bed and the bookshelf was opened, it was just the right height to hold a book. She had also learned to turn pages by holding a wooden stick in her mouth. The stick was specially made, with one end flat to fit in her mouth, already marked with many teeth marks, and the other end had a rubber non-slip cover to help turn the pages. Watching Moyer skillfully use the stick with her mouth to turn the pages was quite a sight. Leo was a bit stunned. Moyer noticed his gaze, glanced at him expressionlessly. Leo then quietly walked to the kitchen. There were still some unwashed dishes in the kitchen. Leo washed them while pondering what to make for dinner. Being new here, he wasn't sure about Moyer's tastes. Just then, Lucia came into the kitchen to grab something, so he asked her. Lucia didn't know what Moyer wanted to eat either. Leo then asked if Moyer felt anything physically. Lucia calmly replied that Moyer felt nothing at all. While they were talking, Moyer suddenly called out to Lucia to turn on the TV for her. Lucia had to briefly explain to Leo that there would be a percussion test at 3 a.m. and she would wake him up for it so he could learn. Leo didn't quite understand what a percussion test was and listened in confusion. At 3 a.m., Lucia woke Leo up on time and took him to Moyer's room. Moyer was lying quietly on the bed, seemingly asleep. Lucia asked Leo to come closer and then lifted the blanket. Underneath, Moyer was wearing a slightly long nightgown, her legs bare. From her well-proportioned body and neatly trimmed toenails, it was clear that Moyer was a very proper woman. But now, her body was limp and at Lucia's mercy. Lucia narrated to Leo while she worked, turning Moyer's body to the side, placing a bedpan under her, and using Moyer's legs to secure it. She then covered Moyer's abdomen with a blanket and rhythmically tapped Moyer's lower abdomen with 3 fingers. In simple terms, percussion involves tapping certain parts of the body to produce different resonance sounds from the underlying organs. The nature and timing of these sounds help determine if the area is normal. Since Moyer had no sensation in her body, the caregiver needed to closely monitor her condition to prevent unnoticed organ issues. Additionally, 3 a.m. was a routine time for night checks. The percussion test helped Moyer urinate at night, preventing her bladder from becoming too full and causing her to wet the bed. After Lucia finished urinating, she asked Leo to empty and disinfect the chamber pot. Only after Leo left did Moyer, who had been lying silently, open her bloodshot eyes. Those beautiful eyes were filled with despair. Although she couldn't feel anything, she could hear and knew what had just happened. The next morning, Leo woke up late. Moyer had been awake for a while but couldn't see the caregiver, so she lay in bed, anxiously shouting. When Leo hurriedly put on his clothes and rushed over, Moyer was already drenched in sweat. Moyer looked at Leo angrily and asked, "Where have you been? Do you know what time it is?" Leo was stunned. Moyer then instructed, "Open the curtains and help me up." Because he woke up late, Leo was extra careful with his work that day. Not only did he prepare a sumptuous breakfast for Moyer, but he also meticulously brushed her teeth and wiped her mouth. Seeing that Leo was quite diligent, Moyer calmed down and instructed him to open the window, clean the room, and reminded him that the next checkup was at 10 o'clock. After a pause, she added, "I hope someone is by my side when I wake up." Leo nodded after hearing the instructions, got up, opened the window, and went to the balcony. The wind gently blew through the window, ruffling Moyer's hair. The sunlight outside with Leo's strong back was reassuring. But soon, Moyer's smile faded. Too many caregivers had come and gone. She still couldn't feel at ease. Soon it was 10 o'clock. Lucia started her night shift and needed to rest during the day. Today's percussion examination had to be done by Leo alone. Moyer was a bit tense, watching Leo place the bedpan aside and walk to the bedside to lift the blanket. Suddenly, Moyer said, I need to make a call, and casually recited a string of numbers for Leo to dial. After Leo placed the phone on the pillow so Moyer could hold it with his head, Moyer instructed Leo to leave. The phone number was actually fake, and as soon as Leo left, Moyer couldn't hold back his tears. Over the years, she had seen many new caregivers come and go, examining her. Having experienced so much disdain from others, she had become more sensitive, resentful, and even humiliated. This time, the caregiver was a man. She closed her eyes, took a few deep breaths to control her emotions, and then calmly called Leo Indiana. It was Leo's first time doing such a task. He hadn't even changed a baby's diaper before. At first, he didn't even know where to place the bedpan. Summoning his courage, he clumsily pulled off Moyer's blanket. Taking care of a paraplegic person is indeed challenging for anyone, especially since Moyer had a bad temper. When Leo saw Lucia again, he expressed his desire to leave. Lucia wasn't surprised at all. She placed the items she bought on the table and asked Leo if he wanted a drink. She had already noticed that Leo drank a whole bottle of cooking wine, so this time she specifically bought some wine. Seeing that Leo didn't even drink the wine and was about to leave, Lucia called out to him. She made an excuse, asking Leo to help her hang the clothes, trying to keep him there. After spending several years with Moyer, Lucia had come to see her as a friend. She hoped that the caregiver for Moyer could be stable and not cause her any more harm. While hanging the clothes, Leo asked Lucia why Moyer ended up like this. Lucia explained that 3 years ago, Moyer came from France to find her fiancé. Then, she had a car accident. The driver died on the spot, and when Moyer woke up and saw her condition, she decided not to return to France. Moyer's fiancé requested a transfer after the accident and has since moved to another place. The last time he sent a letter to Moyer was 2 years ago. After hearing this, Leo couldn't help but ask about Moyer's parents. Lucia replied that Moyer's father is in Paris, but Moyer forbade him from visiting because he treated her mother very poorly. Her mother even died because of him. Her mother was a very wealthy woman and left a lot of property, while her father was just a parasite. After finishing, Lucia took the basket of clothes from Leo and indicated that he could leave. But Leo's mind was far from calm. After leaving the Moyles' house, he sat on the street smoking. That night, he went to a bar and drank heavily. His gloom made him stand out. The next day, just as he went upstairs, he saw Lucia waiting at the door and loudly said to Moyer, "See, I won the bet." It turns out that after Leo left, Moyer and Lucia made a bet. The stake was a book. If Lucia won, Moyer would give her a book, but Moyer would read it first. However, Lucia would definitely not choose a love story. For Moyer, love stories are unnecessary. Later, Lucia asked Leo why he came back. Leo only said it was for money. Meanwhile, in the room, Moyer, who seemed indifferent, was actually eavesdropping on their conversation. After the talk, Lucia handed Leo a shopping list and asked him to buy some items. In the evening, Leo prepared a fish for Moyer. Looking at the fish on the plate, Moyer angrily asked, "Didn't Lucia tell you? I never eat fish. It's too dangerous." Because she has no sensation in her body, swallowing a fish bone could be fatal. But Leo calmly replied, "There are no bones. I cleaned it thoroughly." Leo was very confident in his cooking, but Moyer didn't want to take the risk. She urgently scolded Leo, saying, "Eating is all I have left. I'm starving, and you bring me a damn fish." Leo felt a bit helpless but remained calm and said, "This isn't all you have left." Leo replied, "Perhaps you still have trust." Hearing this, Moyer was taken aback. Under Leo's persuasion, Moyer cautiously took a bite of the fish. She chewed a small piece of fish for a long time, afraid of swallowing a bone, but found there were indeed no bones. She was a bit surprised and embarrassed, glancing at Leo before signaling him to continue feeding her. The second bite, Moyer ate much faster. After finishing, she opened her mouth wide, waiting for the next bite. She hadn't tasted fish in 3 years. Seeing Moyer like a hungry little bird, Leo smiled. The plate of fish was quickly finished, but Moyer still wanted more. Importantly, the feeling of trust was slowly growing. However, not long after, Leo was late for most of the day. Leo has been working at Moyer's for a week, but hasn't received his salary yet. Desperate for a drink, he resorted to drinking disinfectant alcohol mixed with cola, which made him feel very sick, forcing him to rest for a long time. When Leo explained to Moyer that he was ill, Moyer sneered and said it looked more like a hangover. He then warned Leo that if he was late again, he wouldn't need to come back. Lucia was surprised that Moyer, with his temper, didn't fire Leo and even planned to pay him weekly. After handing Leo his first week's salary, Lucia discussed shift changes with him. Previously, Lucia worked the night shift, and both she and Moyer hoped Leo could switch shifts with her. Leo readily agreed. Since most of the day had already passed, Leo took the rest of the day off and would start the night shift from tomorrow. After leaving Moyer's house, Leo wandered around aimlessly. After staring at the sea for a long time, he remembered Lucia saying he was like a garbage dump. He used his newly earned salary to buy a pair of sneakers and then went to the boxing gym. The gym owner was a friend who introduced Leo to the job at Moyer. Leo was once the European welterweight boxing champion, known for his lightning-fast punches. Today, Leo came to box, hoping that exercise would help him quit alcohol and not hinder his work anymore. However, due to the effects of alcohol, his punching speed was now slower than a child's. After a short while, for some time, Leo took care of Moira at night and went to the boxing gym during the day. The gym owner, an old acquaintance of Leo, knew his capabilities. Seeing Leo gradually regain his boxing skills, the owner considered making him a coach. Although Leo's career as a boxer had ended, his championship experience made him the best coach. The gym owner was planning a women's boxing match and had already selected 2 promising candidates, believing it would be a big hit. With Leo training the fighters, it would be even more spectacular. Leo immediately recognized one of the contestants, named Linda, was someone he had met before. Last time, when he was shopping on the street, Linda took advantage of his distraction and snatched his wallet from behind. Although he immediately turned around and grabbed Linda by the neck, Linda also held a knife to his throat. He had to let go, allowing Linda to escape. Leo didn't expect to see Linda again at the boxing gym. He directly chose Linda as a student and first had a match with her. Last time, Leo knocked Linda down, avenging himself. After some training, Leo's condition improved significantly. He became more adept at taking care of Moira, and their relationship gradually became more harmonious. One day, Leo suddenly suggested taking Moira downstairs. Moira refused without a second thought. For her, going downstairs was a very risky thing. Seeing Leo insist, Moira bluntly said, "You reek of alcohol from morning till night. Your hands are always shaking, and your legs must be shaking too. So no, I don't trust you. I don't want to fall and eat dirt on the stairs. If I have to go downstairs, I need 3 people to carry me. The therapist's assistant, and Lucia." Leo didn't argue after hearing this. He just asked, "Are you never going out again?" Moira felt this had nothing to do with Leo. Leo sighed, walked to the window, and looked at the sunlight outside. Suddenly, he said in a deep voice, "I have a surprise for you." Actually, some time ago, Leo learned from Lucia that Moira used to be a very independent person with a free spirit. But now, Moira could only rely on others and had become a prisoner. This made Lucia very regretful, and Leo also kept this in mind. Although Leo couldn't help Moira become independent again, after spending a lot of time together, he hoped to help Moira no longer be a prisoner confined to the bed. When Moira heard that Leo had prepared a surprise, she didn't take it seriously at first. But seeing Leo's earnestness, she had to ask what the surprise was. Leo said it was a game. Moira became curious and finally agreed to let Leo move her to the terrace downstairs. On the terrace, Leo had already set up a table with drinks and snacks. Moira never thought she would have a day to sit on the terrace and enjoy the view. In the sunny afternoon, the sunlight had a hint of orange red, and the faint sounds of traffic from the street below made the world seem alive again. Moira felt a bit dazed by it all, but she wasn't one to dwell on emotions. She then asked Leo to explain the game. Leo smiled and took out a wooden box, asking her to close her eyes. He then took out a glass bottle from the box and held it up to her nose for her to smell. Moira obediently closed her eyes, took a serious sniff, and asked if it was rose. Leo excitedly said she was correct. Then, he took out another glass bottle for her to smell. This time, Moira smelled sandalwood. Moira really enjoyed the game and opened her eyes with a smile, feeling touched and thanked Leo. They ended up sitting on the terrace for a very long time. One afternoon, Leo was reading to Moira. As Moira listened, she suddenly said she wanted to go for a walk. Leo didn't like reading initially, but over time, he started to enjoy it as he read to Moira every day. After finishing a whole passage, he took Moira outside. Moira, sitting in her wheelchair, was pushed by Leo. She looked at the long mist streets and occasionally chatted with Leo, her face glowing with a beautiful smile. Moira asked Leo to take her to a bookstall. She was very familiar with the owner, as most of the books she read were rented from there. The bookstall owner was delighted to see Moira in person. After leaving the bookstall, Moira suddenly asked Leo if he had ever swum. Leo said no. He liked the sea but didn't like going into it. Moira said she liked both, especially going into the sea. While sitting by the street drinking, Moira suddenly asked Leo if he had a girlfriend. Leo looked at her and said no. Moira smiled. Later, Leo took Moira to his usual spot to watch the sea. The vast sea was peaceful and beautiful. One day, Moira suddenly asked Lucia what Leo does when he's not around. Without much thought, Lucia said he goes to places men usually go and drinks. But in reality, Leo either goes boxing or looks for Linda, who hasn't been to the gym in a long time. He made a bet with the boxing gym owner for $5,000. He would train Linda, and the gym owner would train another fighter to see whose trainee would win. But since Linda got beaten up by Leo last time, she disappeared. Leo had to put in some effort to find where Linda lived. Linda was someone living at the bottom of society. She was raped at 11, and besides robbing, she also slept with people for money. Her behavior was very crude. Seeing that Linda only cared about money, Leo told her about the bet with the gym owner and promised to give her half the money if she won. Only then did Linda agree to continue training. Today was another day for Leo and Lucia to switch shifts. Lucia took care of Moira in the evening, but Moira didn't eat anything for dinner and seemed preoccupied. Before going to bed, Moira suddenly asked Lucia if she would sleep with Leo. Lucia was taken aback, but firmly said no. It was clear that Moira was gradually developing feelings. At this moment, Leo and Linda are in a bar. Leo is drinking while Linda is dancing on the floor. Linda's wild and provocative dance catches the ire of a nearby white girl. Seizing an opportunity, Linda punches the girl, causing her nose to bleed. Seeing the trouble, Leo quickly pulls Linda away, but they are soon found by the white girl's friends. While Linda is in the shadows dealing with a personal matter, the group only sees Leo. To protect Linda, Leo leads them away, but ends up getting beaten badly. In the end, Linda scares them off with a knife. Leo was so injured that he couldn't even stand up, and with his head covered in blood. When he got home, he forced himself to tell Linda to go to the Moyles' house tomorrow to ask for leave. But Linda, seeing him injured for her sake, mistakenly thought he had feelings for her. Hearing him still thinking about asking her to pass on the message at this time, she felt a bit unhappy. The next day, although Linda went to the Moyles' house, she felt hostile when she saw Lucia. Lucia thought there was something unusual between Leo and Linda, so she deliberately said Leo couldn't come. Lucia asked if it was temporary or permanent. Linda replied that he couldn't come today or tomorrow. When Lucia asked why, Linda said she didn't know. Lucia then asked Leo to call, but Linda firmly said he couldn't. Linda's attitude made Lucia suspicious, thinking she was hiding the truth. She even offered some money to get Linda to tell the truth, but Linda just mocked her. Lucia couldn't get any useful information and returned to Moyer with a lot of questions. She told Moyer everything that had happened. Moyer quickly asked who delivered the message. Knowing that Moyer had feelings for Leo, Lucia lied, and Moyer then asked what exactly was said, and if there was anything else. Lucia hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Moyer sensed that Lucia was hiding something from her, making her think that Leo might never come back. Leo had someone deliver the message because he couldn't say it himself. With this thought, Moyer became somewhat despondent. She couldn't focus on her book and instead recalled a sorrowful poem, silently wiping her eyes. Leo stayed home for 2 days to recover until the swelling on his face went down, and then he finally went to Moyer's house. At that time, Moyer was already interviewing other caregivers. The girl who came for the interview was very experienced, having previously worked as an assistant nurse. However, Moyer was distracted during the interview until the door opened and Leo, with a bruised face, appeared at the door. Moyer's eyes refocused. After the girl left, Moyer questioned Leo. "What's your excuse this time? The alarm clock was late for 2 days?" Leo was silent for a moment and then truthfully said, "I got into a fight." Moyer, feeling angry, mocked Leo just like when they first met, making him feel prickly all over. After venting, Moyer said, "You were late for 2 days. You're fired." Leo had been silently listening to her provocations and finally said, "I want to stay. I promise it won't happen again." Hearing this, Moyer's tears instantly fell. She quickly turned her head, afraid Leo would see. After calming down a bit, she pretended to be cold and said, "Go find Lucia to get your pay." Moyer refused to back down, so Leo had to leave. That night, Leo got drunk on the street. When he returned home, he saw Linda sitting on his bed. It turned out that Leo had rushed to find Moyer earlier and forgot to lock the door, so Linda just came in. She wanted to spend more time with Leo. For the next while, Linda was very cooperative with the training. On the other hand, Moyer was feeling increasingly distressed. One night, she asked Lucia for a double dose of sedatives, wanting to take a one-way trip. She pleaded for Lucia's help, but Lucia refused. On the same day, Linda finally asked Leo, "Do you want to sleep with me?" Leo didn't hesitate to say he didn't want to. Linda then asked if he would want to in the future. Leo said no. Later, Leo got very drunk. However, after getting drunk, he went to Moyer's house. The next morning, Moyer was awakened by the sound of snoring. She looked at the man sleeping beside her, reeking of alcohol, and was a bit taken aback, but not angry. Lucia happened to enter the room and was shocked by the scene. Lucia walked to the bedside and asked Moyer what to do. Moore glanced at Leo and told him to sleep. However, Leo woke up shortly after. Moore, feeling a bit uneasy, pretended not to care. Leo sat up, gathered his thoughts, and asked Moore again to let him stay. Moore asked me why I wanted to keep you. Leo gave many reasons and even promised to stop drinking, but Moore still disagreed and wanted to kick him out again. Leo reluctantly walked to the door, but suddenly stopped. He then rushed to the bedside, staring into Moyer's eyes, and said, "You missed me. That's the reason." The always proud Moyer refused to admit it. She said, "What I need is a perfect, punctual, and fully alert caregiver." Leo confidently said, "I can." But Moyer didn't believe him and questioned, "Who gave you the right to treat me this way? I'm not a normal woman. You can't treat other women like this, so why treat me this way?" Moyer choked up as she spoke. Leo thought she was referring to sleeping in her bed and quickly explained that he had slept beside other women before. But Moyer shook her head bitterly and said, "You don't understand anything. I was talking about the torment." With that, Moyer finally couldn't hold back her emotions and broke down in tears. She cried, "You come and go, leaving me in torment." Seeing Moyer in tears, Leo sighed and said, "It's not my fault. I wanted to come back, but you fired me." Moyer replied, "A normal woman can give you a second chance and enjoy that luxury. But I can't afford that. Even a small fishbone can be fatal to me." For Moyer, whether it's a fishbone or the cost of emotional mistakes, it's too high. So she doesn't dare to allow a man to come and go in her life, like a normal woman. To her, that's a luxury she can't afford. However, after venting her emotions, she still asked Leo to make her breakfast. In the end, she succumbed to her feelings. Fortunately, Leo was very kind to Moyer. He pushed Moyer to a tranquil forest and nestled under a giant tree root. When Moyer said she wanted to roll on the grass, Leo carried her to the meadow, gently turning her body so she could feel the grass and the earth. They lay side by side, laughing heartily when children nearby noticed them. Leo also promised Moyer that if he ever had to leave, he would never abandon her, no matter where he went. After some time, the day of the boxing match was approaching. Leo, considering Moyer's feelings, first took leave from Lucia and honestly explained the reason. Lucia asked Leo, "How long will you stay here?" Leo firmly replied, "I won't leave." Linda and Leo won the boxing match. Afterward, Leo borrowed a car from the gym owner and started a trip with Moyer. He wore the shirt that Lucia bought for him. Moyer said he looked like sunshine in that shirt. They went to the countryside and the seaside. Leo held Moyer and spun around in the waves. He remembered that Moyer once said she liked going into the sea. True love is probably like this. I didn't originally like going into the sea, but I'm willing to try it with you. I didn't originally like reading, but because you like it, I started to like it too. I'm afraid of going downstairs, afraid of sunlight, and afraid of fish bones. But with you by my side, I found the courage to try. The film ends. Title: The Man Beside the Pillow. Starring Sophie Marceau and Christopher Lambert. While it may seem that Leo helps Moyer overcome his gloom and rediscover the joy of life, Moyer is also the one who saves Leo. Although the film doesn't explicitly detail Leo's past, there are hints in a passage Leo mentions to Moyer. We know Leo dislikes reading, yet he remembers this passage clearly. It was a letter written by a woman, stating she had just confirmed she was pregnant with a boy. She knew her husband preferred boys because he could teach them boxing. She hoped her husband would change, stop fooling around, and be less cold to his family and more warm to his friends. However, before Leo could finish, Moyer interrupted him. From this content, it's not hard to deduce that this letter is addressed to Leo. Leo is a boxer who loves boxing. Therefore, we can infer that Leo was not a responsible man in the past. He hurt another woman and realized his mistake too late. To numb himself, he turned to alcohol, living a rough and meaningless life. When he met Moira, a stubborn and arrogant woman who needed someone to rely on, he seemed to find a way to atone for his past. So, shortly after leaving the first time, he chose to return and started to help Moira build her mental strength, gradually helping her step out of her room. He gradually found the strength to get his life back on track. Moira's dependence became Leo's motivation for change, helping him rediscover the meaning of life. This wasn't something physical could replace. So, faced with the young and energetic Linda, Leo remained unmoved. Instead, he sleeps beside Moira. Milan Kundera said that making love to a woman and sleeping next to a woman are two entirely different, almost opposite feelings. Love is not expressed through the desire to make love, but through the desire to share a bed with her. The former can be a desire for countless women, but the latter can only be a desire for one woman. It's worth mentioning that Sophie Marceau, who played Moire, thought this was the most beautiful script she had ever read in her film career. She immediately asked her boyfriend Christopher to read it as well. Christopher also loved the story and joined Sophie Marceau in the film, playing the role of Leo.